Welcome to This Week in College Hockey. Tony Scott from his basement at home. This is the first time I've ever done the old record from your mom's basement, basically. I'm not in my mom's house, but other than that, I'm kind of doing the whole record from the basement thing. How is everyone doing today, Sydney?
Doing pretty good. I'm not in my mom's basement, but I'm in my own basement. So
All
recording.
right.
We got the Zoom special for everybody today, but we have so much news that it was not an option to skip this week because there is like way too much going on.
Way too much. And Ryan's the only one who looks like he's at work today. Congratulations, Ryan. You're in the
Thank you.
pod room today. Um, and I have, let's see, what's my excuse? We have a carpet cleaner today that I have to be here for. And the other reason is the women's pod crew, Jossie, Kayla, and Peter are on the road today. They're headed to River Falls, Wisconsin to meet the head coach at River Falls, the women's head coach, and learn more about their program. So they're going to have a pod, off-site pod in River Falls, which should be some good content and kind of college related. So I figured I would just bring that up here as that's why we're kind of doing the ad hoc from your mom's basement version of This Week in College Hockey. So all right, let's get rolling. There's a lot to cover. Let's cover the regionals first. How did everyone get to the Frozen Four? And then a little Frozen Four preview, and then we can go through all the news. There is a lot of news out there, coaches, players, lots of movement. Let's just put it that way. You want to get us rolling, Sid?
Yeah, it's been a busy couple weeks, and I don't know how much you were able to watch Tony when you were on vacation because obviously you were not in the time zone of the games. So
I
I
kept on as much as I could. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm sure you weren't like trying to be like, oh, I gotta watch this Penn State game at 3 a.m.
No, exactly. But I literally, if I was awake, the problem is a 7 o'clock game. It's 3 in the morning in Italy, right? So like the Minnesota. I'm glad you read that. The Minnesota UMass game. I woke up in the middle of the night. It was like probably the first night I was there, and I looked at my phone and looked at the clock, and I was totally, messed up clockwise. And the Gophers were leading 3-1. I'm like, oh, okay, good. I'm not going to stay awake now. And because it was in the second period or something, I'm like, I'm not going to stay up for another 45 minutes to an hour just to see if the Gophers won. I care, but I don't care that much. Go back to sleep, wake up 3 hours later, grab my phone to see that they've made it to you know, the regional final. And they didn't for obvious reasons. Then I open up my Twitter and it's just one of y'all, I don't know who, it was probably you, Sydney, who posted the Chesley trip, and that set off the world. I mean, that one tweet set off the world. So
Yeah, and I said it pretty politely when we recorded me, Ryan, and Peter our sort of like recaps that night. I put it pretty like very neutral. I just said, here is the controversial, whether you think it was a trip or wasn't a trip, here's just the replay. If you just want to watch the replay, no other commentary. And everyone was like, that's a trip. That's not a trip. Very much, which we can discuss that. But people had very, very strong opinions on that video.
yeah,
But
it's kind of like the Caroline Harvey, Abby Murphy. Like no matter you just post one penalty or one hit or one trip, and the offending team thinks it's soft, and the team who got hit thinks it's the worst thing in the world. It's just like part of the formula, right?
I mean, we can get into that because that was obviously a big thing when we talk about the Fargo regional, but I saved that one for the last regional to talk
Yeah,
about for
let's roll through them all, and we'll swing back to the Gophers UMass game.
obviously there was plenty to talk about from that regional, but the Manchester one, whoever, would have picked Denver again. I think Ryan, you might have had Denver coming out of this regional. Denver is looking like primetime Denver. We talked about it on our recaps after the games. They're looking like how they normally do it this time of year. They beat
Yeah.
Prov 5-1. It was not a very close game at all. Me wearing my Providence jersey last pod did not do anything to help them. And they had five different goal scorers, and they even took a 5-minute major, and they still won by four. So that was pretty crazy. A different interesting one. I don't know if you saw any of this game, Tony, was BC almost, lost to Bentley. It was really close, and I was kind of rooting for the Falcons because obviously we shout out Andy Jones all the time. They're like this small program going up against BC, and it was tied 1-1 until 2 minutes left. And then James Higgins, of course, does James Higgins things and scores, but they played so close.
I was awake when that game was being played, and I was refreshing my college hockey app every 30 seconds, it seemed, because that would have been one of the greatest upsets in
Yeah.
my memory, going dating back to Holy Cross being the Gophers. I mean, that would have been on that kind of level victory.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been one of those, one seed losing
Where
to,
were you
yeah,
when BC got beat? I was in Florence, Italy, you know?
props to Bentley because they played really well, I thought, like going up against BC. And if you're BC, I was kind of like, that's not a good start for them at all. But then Denver and BC play. Denver just barely slips past BC. It was 2-1 with an empty net goal. I'm sure our listeners know Eric Polkamp. He had a big goal. He scored the first one. And BC actually outshot Denver by I think 10 or 11 shots. So Denver kind of shelled up in the last half of that game once they kind of got a lead, but Denver does Denver things. Their goalie Matt Davis again coming up
Yeah.
big in the season, and Denver comes out of that Manchester Regional.
It's obviously it was a rematch of last year's national championship game. It's two absolute heavyweights in college hockey the last 3 years, and average period, but especially the last few years, they've had so many great players in both programs. I just was blown away by how well Denver has played in the last month. But until then, they were average. I mean, remember now, this team lost to UNLV's club team in December. So I didn't have high hopes for them, and I don't think many on this podcast did either.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were 9 in the pairwise coming
Yeah.
into the something like
Yep.
that. And they just out. It seems like they always kind of do that towards the conference postseason. They kind of are playing like not bad, but fine, and then all of a sudden they get ready for the national tournament, and they're just like prime time. So they
What's the
always,
formula? What is the formula? That's what everyone wants to know, right?
yeah. So they're playing good. They got a lot of different guys scoring. Matt Davis is doing Matt Davis things, and I feel like during the season two, people don't think he's that crazy of a goalie, and then again, postseason comes and he'll make like a billion saves. So
Yeah, well,
it's
especially last year in the finals, he was unbelievable.
crazy. Yeah. So Denver coming out of that regional, I feel bad that I doubted them because they are just doing their Denver things again.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Then Allentown Regional, a lot of people were saying this was like a home game for Penn State, but we talked about it. Allentown is not that close to Penn State, really. It's
Like
kind of,
3.5 hours.
it's not like it's like next to Penn State or anything. So I know they had a lot of fans there, but it wasn't like next door.
I know we could talk it ad nauseum about the topic of regionals, and I don't have any problem with nearby regionals. I don't have any problem with that. Sioux Falls or Fargo or, just as long as it's not in their home barn. I'm not a home barn guy. I was at one once. I can't remember what it was. It was team years ago, and Cornell was #1 in the country, and they'd come into Mariucci and beat the Gophers. And the Gophers just clean them off the ice. And like, that's not fair. I feel like that was like a Frozen Four appearance by the Gophers was just based on they got to host the region final, which I didn't think was fair.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to spend much time on that. I saw so many people saying, well, like, oh, well, Penn State got the home ice advantage in this regional, so they had so many fans there. And I'm like, well, if you have a problem with that, tell the coaches to vote differently because they're the ones who are voting to have the
Right.
neutral regionals. So, obviously the coaches must not have that big of an issue with it because I know some do, but
I
I
do
think
think I do think it's cool I think it'd be cool though if the top four seeds posted.
yeah,
What
yeah,
would be the problem with that? You're
yeah.
that I mean the fighting to get that fourth seed would be amazing. And now you gotta keep your rink available. You can't, knock your ice out. You can't, any of those things. You have to host, and you got every team in college hockey you have to host. I think I think they would have an idea, especially if you're in the top eight, that hey, we could be hosting. We got to clear our calendar for that weekend to host, three hockey games.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the good things too, if we ended up going to those home sites, could be, something too. Like they had a lot of ice problems at the Manchester Regional. I don't know if
Oh, big time.
you're viewing the like ice guy at in between one of the games because they kept having to like redo the goal pegs and then they were like repairing a part of the ice and it just every year there's one of the regionals has ice issues, I feel like, and it's
Yeah,
I
to
think
it
they
always feels like it's Loveland, Colorado that has the ice problems.
Chicago, I think has had some in the past, and like it's just such a, I don't know. Every year they have these arenas, and I heard the Manchester one isn't even a regional that has hockey there that
No,
often.
no, it's like
So
an ice show.
yeah, I don't.
Ryan, what were you gonna say, Ryan?
I was gonna say, I think they obviously, like you touched on, Sydney, they knew that they were gonna have problems going into it. Because even at Fargo, which is a USHL rink, which always hosts ice, they had their thermometers guns out there, and they were looking at the ice pregame. And when the Zambonis were going through, they had guys out there with little turkey basters taking the water out of the peg holes. So they knew that they were concerned out of the gate. And luckily, there was really no issues up there, other than the fact that Shields is just kind of notoriously warm. And from
Yeah,
my perch, the photography perch, you could clearly see there was quite a bit of standing water. And I think that they kind of maybe called an audible and we kind of waited probably 5, 10 minutes after each resurfacing just for the water to set. So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
so we can just get into the Allentown regional, but I know some people were like, well, Penn State, they're like the 4 seed in this regional and they get the most fans at this. So if you're somebody that has strong feelings, feel free to send us your thoughts on what you think the regional should do because I know some people were upset about that because then Penn State goes on to win. And I know they did have a ton of fans at this regional. But they defeat Maine, which was a big, big upset. I know, Ryan, you were a big Maine guy, but Penn State gets that one
Yeah.
5. A lot of guys with big performances that night. And then UConn beat Quinnipiac 4-1. And that was also, in my opinion, one of the least interesting games of the week. And then it's Penn State versus UConn. That was a good game, though. 3-2 in overtime. It would have been either one of their first appearances at the Frozen Four. So kind of cool that that happened. I thought Penn State played really well early, and then UConn caught on like in the second half of the game, but then Penn State ends up winning it. DeMarzico got the overtime game winner. Both goalies were really great, but yeah, two not super great games to start, and then a good final. But everyone was surprised that Maine went down by that much.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I mean, especially how well Penn State had been playing in the second half of the season. And hats off to them. I mean, it feels strange to say that Penn State is in the Frozen Four. Doesn't that just not come off your tongue a little weird?
Yeah, out of all the Big Ten teams, it's Penn State, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. What were the other regionals? I'm trying to jog my brain here.
Yeah, so we went through Manchester, went through Allentown, Toledo. The champion is BU. The BU Ohio State game. I don't know if you watched any of that. It was a pretty wacky game. 8-3 final score, very odd. Ohio State had a ton of pressure early and they outshot BU like 36-23. And it was 3-3 heading into the third. And then BU just scored like 5 goals at the end.
Collapse, absolute collapse.
I don't want to like flame anybody necessarily, but I did not think Ohio State's goaltending was great. So I
It,
thought, oh,
the games I saw him play, he was unbelievable. It was just he just had
yeah,
one off period, right?
he only, I think, made 15 saves in that game or something. So one kind of weird period doomed them a little bit, but they
Right.
played pretty well the first half of that game. But BU, we've talked about it, is so wishy-washy. Sometimes they look great, other times it's like, I don't know what they're doing. Cornell, Big Red, coming in clutch, upsets Michigan State 4-3. They get essentially a buzzer beater with 10 seconds left while they were on the power play. So it wasn't even overtime. I was preparing to send out the overtime tweet. And then with 10 seconds left, they score and the game's over. Cornell wins. And that was insane. I don't know if you saw that one, Tony, or if you checked your phone and you were like, oh, Cornell, okay.
Yeah, I all I can think of whenever I think of Cornell is how excited you get to post the Office Cornell Andy. Is it
Yeah.
Andy's name? Like, oh my
No,
God.
Those were all
Dwight.
over Twitter when that happened. Everyone was posting those everywhere. And It's like you feel really bad for Michigan State when that happens, but at the same time you feel so good for Cornell that they like pulled out this huge game.
Yeah, it would have been even cooler had they pulled off the regional win, 'cause they were pretty much an unknown team all year. I mean, they did not have a great season. Uh, they basically got in because of their win in the ECAC, right?
Yeah, because Quinnipiac was so bad.
And they didn't even win the Ivy.
Yeah. They didn't
They
win the
didn't win the Ivy. Yeah, I
even the
mean, like, who saw this coming? You got to win the Ivy, I think.
Cornell was really good. They took BU really far too. It was 3-2 in overtime. So they pushed BU to overtime too.
Yeah.
They played their hearts out. Quinn Hudson ends up getting the game-winning goal for BU though. Cornell even took a five in that game and they still stayed in it. So like huge props to Cornell and obviously their coach and what a run for him in that, final
Yeah,
season.
this final season, pretty cool.
So that was Toledo. BU ends up winning that, but we can
Just really quick, I think somewhere in a pod I ripped on Toledo.
oh, I don't know.
And somebody came on to one of our tweets and said, "Quit ripping on Toledo. You should come to Toledo and something." I was like, "Oh wow, there's actually well, there was somebody in Toledo." It turned out I kind of did a little, Sydney research, and it was a Bowling Green was the host,
Oh, okay.
and it was someone who was a Bowling Green fan who must have listened to our show or watched our show or seen something about it, and said, all right, fair enough. I think I even said it, like, but there's nobody in Toledo who's going to be listening to this show. And we got at least one or at least a Bowling Green fan who had tuned in and listened.
I've never been to Toledo, so I cannot say if I, like or dislike.
I'm just not
I don't
thinking
know
it's a
what I'm going to be
huge
with Toledo
hockey
next.
power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was the Toledo regional, the Fargo regional, which Ryan, I know you were watching a bunch of those games, and obviously a lot of people were watching that for the Gophers. But in that first game, it ended up being a pretty crazy, just regional altogether, really close games. And this one, that's why I saved it for last. But Western Michigan played Mankato. Western won 2-1 in two OT. Someone we all know, Grant Slukinski, got the overtime game winner, and I thought it was a really cool video. If you saw this, Tony, of him coming into the locker room and everyone was quiet and
Silent.
yeah, spraying him with the water bottles and stuff and hyping him up. That was great. The Broncos wildly outshot Mankato, but Mankato stayed in it. Their goalie, Alex Tracy, played great. I mean, both goalies played great, but that was a crazy game. I was like, wow, Mankato's really sticking in this one, and Western, that was a tough game, Ryan. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that one since you were there and taking pictures and all that stuff.
Yeah, like I mentioned, they gave us those little, pregame sheets, and the one stat that stuck out, like I mentioned when we did our recaps, was that Western has the highest goals for, and Minnesota State had the lowest goals against. So going into this game, I kind of foresaw maybe this outcome a little bit. I think was it a 2-1 final? Um, like I said, Alex Tracy, he looked dialed from the moment he came out for warmups, and he was just sharp as ever. So wasn't too shocked by his performance, but I think just kind of going back to what we talked about before, I think Western is probably one of the most complete rosters, obviously showing that they get a lot of their goal scoring from all points of their roster. And like we talked about, Alex Bump was kind of shut down.
Yeah.
He was shadowed most of the tournament. And yeah, I mean, they were watching tape on Alex Bump, and just there was two guys on him at all times. And even if that means leaving another guy open, I think Minnesota State was okay with that. But yeah, credit to Minnesota State. They fought hard. But yeah, Western was just, like you said, the better team, and credit to Hammer as well. I think maybe a lot of people will talk about Alex Tracy in that game just because of, he is one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie in college hockey. But credit to Hammer as well. He really was solid back there.
How about Hammer? He's got something for Fargo. He won a Clark Cup there and goes back there, and that's a
I
pretty
did I hear
familiar place for him.
I think I heard a stat. Somebody said I can't confirm this, but he was like 15-1 in that building. So
I'm not surprised. Not surprised.
yeah, like most people were like, yeah, I think it was one another photographer, and he was like, yeah, he likes this building. So
Yeah. Yeah. Good for him.
He
Good for
definitely
him.
didn't have to face as many shots as Tracy, but he had a lot of high danger, I thought, chances that
he
he had to.
did. He did. Yeah, he had a
That
lot
was
of there were. point blank shots where I mean they were almost just reactionary shots, and he's big goalie, you know what I mean? He's got those huge Bauer pads on, I think they are. So yeah, I was not shocked by that outcome.
So Western wins that one, even though it was a tight game. And then we have another tight game after that. So this regional went so late into the night. That's why we recorded our thing after
Yeah.
super late because we had a two OT game and then an OT game. And this is the one that everyone was so up in arms about. UMass ends up beating the Gophers 5-4 in overtime. It was a crazy game. Like you said, Tony, the Gophers were up 3-1 after two periods. So I think a lot of people were like, oh, I'm going to go to bed now. And then ended up turning it back on, and it was either in overtime or over. So in the third period, Gophers are up 3-1. UMass scores three, and then it's 4-3. So you're thinking, oh, UMass is going to win this in regulation. And then Snuggerud ties it up 4-4 late in the game. And then we go to overtime, and then we get uh, I'll say controversial non-call because some people thought it was very controversial. Watching the replay, I didn't really think it was that bad. I know obviously we're watching it in slow motion, so it's very different. But then Adar Suniev, I think is how you pronounce
Yep.
his name, scores the game-winning goal, and UMass wins it. And everybody took to the internet to talk about their opinions, whether or not they thought there was a potential trip.
I had two thoughts on this earlier on Monday on our Monday morning commute. My first thought is, as a referee, and I know I referee youth games, but it's still you're officiating a call.
Yeah.
And when someone gets tripped in the neutral zone, in overtime, you'd have to have beaten the entire. That would have to be on a clean breakaway for me to call that. I don't think that's a trip. Yeah, by the rule, yeah, but if you're kind of good referees kind of observe the game, and I don't think that really changed the game. That's my first thought. And I know technically a Gopher fan, but I that's just my giving my unbiased opinion. And my second thought, and I'm probably get roasted for this, but is I don't think it's the head coach's job at the University of Minnesota to rip the referees after a game when you lose. I've always been a firm believer that you got to look in the mirror and say, what did we do wrong? And accept responsibility for when you win and accept responsibility for when you lose, And this is a case where the Gophers got outclassed in the third period and barely got themselves into overtime. And that's got to be something that on Bob and the staff at the U of M. And I'm sure that I think it was just in the heat of the moment in the press conference when Bob went off. And am I wrong? Is he wrong? No, I think those calls are high sticking and they are tripping, but I just don't think that's what he should be doing at that juncture in his profession, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Maybe as devil's advocate, if you are one of those Gophers, it does feel good to maybe see your coach go to bat for you and back you up a little bit, even though it is probably not the right thing to do at the time. I think Bob probably just, was in an emotional headspace. I don't know how you couldn't be, but I
Yeah,
think he probably thought, I mean, season's over. I mean, six, seven of these guys are signing pro contracts tomorrow. So I might as well just kind of you know, let my gripes be known. But yeah, like you said, in the same sense, I was there. I was sitting center ice, and I forget, was it Zemer that got tripped or Lamb? Somebody,
Chesley.
Yeah.
Chesley. You got to get up, dude. You got to get up. It was fresh overtime ice. He slid from his blue line to the top of the circles looking for the call. Dude, you got to get up. You just got to get up. You got to assume that he's not going to make the call in that sense. So, like you said, the third period was just all Minutemen, and they were playing really heavy hockey. And I think the Gophers, once they were up 3-1, were kind of maybe we just got complicit in a sense. I do want to shout out again Lucas Mercury, who was originally a sixth round draft pick by the Carolina Hurricanes. Lightning solid performance that he had, traded for sixth round for him, and I just looking at the little post here, he did make the roster, so he did get signed by the Tampa Bay Lightning. So plenty deserved. Like I said, they were just uh, as a Gopher fan, to be honest, I could sum it up as they wanted it more.
Right.
It's just they wanted it more. And I don't know if that's a microcosm of the fact that a lot of these guys on the Minutemen maybe don't have that pro contract waiting for them. Some of these guys might be done with hockey at the end of this, end of their career here. So not saying that was the main factor, but they were just the heavier team who wanted it more. So
Right.
And then also
Um, go ahead,
defense on
see.
play coming back down the ice. It's not like the guy who fell over was, like we said, led to a breakaway or something.
right.
And we had a couple guys who were just kind of sitting there and not really playing any defense. And obviously in overtime, that's not going to help you. So,
No, no. All right,
well,
what's next? Are we gonna
yep.
do our preview of the Frozen Four, which starts tomorrow? Which just really
So that
seems
was the
weird.
girls' game. And then just a quick recap, then
Oh,
Western to beat UMass, but that was a close game too, 2-1. A little bit of controversy in that one too. Western scored both their goals during a 5-minute major to the guy who scored the game winner in the Minnesota game, Suniev. Um, I saw a lot of people thought that five was controversial. I kind of was a little bit too, I could see both ways. But then they also gave Western a five after that, so both teams got a five. So you know, I don't
yeah,
know.
you got to cash in on your fives.
Yeah, Western cashed in twice on theirs, and UMass did none on theirs. So I mean, you both got a five. I mean, you can complain, but then you got your own a couple minutes later. But Western wins that one. So then we have the Frozen Four. Denver plays Western Michigan. That's going to be a rematch of the recent double overtime NCHC championship game. And then we got Penn State playing BU. Penn State really hot recently, and BU, we've talked about it. They're very up, very down, depending on the game or the period. They can play great or they can play like they don't care. It seems like you never know what BU team you're going to get. So I don't know. Do any of you have any hot takes? Tony, do you have any, you know, takes for this Frozen Four this year?
I don't know. I'm such a Minnesota guy, that it just I'm not really that interested, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm interested in watching Western. We talked about this a couple of shows ago that if is the only one to make it, this will be the team because they got so many Minnesota guys, and same with Denver. Um, but BU doesn't really interest me. Oddly enough, they're in the Big Ten, and Penn State really doesn't interest me. They have a combined two Minnesotans, and I don't think that Braden Ingham even dresses for Boston University. So
No, he's got two
he's
points in
he's
the
not in the line
game.
charts. I
Yeah.
went back and looked at how many line charts he made. He wasn't in their last three line charts. So, I mean,
Mhm.
it is what it is. It's like I love the Frozen Fours where there's a lot of Big Ten or back in the day WCHA teams or lots of Minnesotans in the rosters. If there aren't any and there's 12 in this one, I'm not as interested, but I'm definitely interested in the landscape of college hockey. And if Western Michigan somehow wins this national championship, anybody who wins this except Denver is a really good story. I mean, obviously Penn State or BU hasn't won in a while. I mean, so there's some good storylines here, but I don't really know. I would think that Western's the best team in the country at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, do you have any hot takes or any predictions for Frozen?
I think maybe not my hot take, but I certainly think it would have been a hot take if we said that Penn State could potentially be in the national championship a month ago.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a hot take. But like Tony touched on before, they were playing well coming into their regional. Yeah, like I'm also cheering for Western, obviously just the Minnesota guy connections, but this could be, I feel like this is Western almost taking a step up in the classes of college hockey in the sense
Yeah.
that they've got that new barn coming, right? If is it
Yep.
almost done next year? So
I don't know when it'll be done, but apparently it's
they're
going to be awesome.
I mean,
Progress.
and then the amount of transfer rumors that are surrounding Western, I truly feel like they are taking a step up and knocking on that door of being a blue blood. So yeah, go Broncos for this Frozen Four. But I really don't have any. They're the only kind of team that I would maybe be quote unquote bummed with is BU from the sense of no ties is where Penn State would be fun just to see Big Ten maybe just shut up those Hockey East guys a little bit. out there. In the sense, Denver, obviously about a Minnesota Wild fan, Zeev Boyum, hopefully the Hobie Baker winner. And then who's the other one? And then Western, obviously. So yeah, I feel like there really isn't, like Tony said, there really isn't a bad storyline in this Frozen
No,
Four.
except DU. I'm not really. I don't think Denver's exciting at all. Like, yeah, now they have 12 national championships, and
Well, I
now the
think
NCHC can add another one of their titles to their Twitter script or whatever, their Twitter
I
bio. I
it
mean,
would just I think it would just be more the storyline would be more David Carl just being like
the greatest
anybody
coach of
else
all time.
anybody else got any questions for me if I'm not one of the greatest. So I think the storyline would be maybe what's the secret sauce that they figured out going into the playoffs, if that. But
I think we're going to find out that David Carl is a descendant, a long lost relative of Nick Saban. That's what we're going to learn that soon.
oh,
Yeah, I mean, I'll
okay.
stick with my Western pick because obviously that was my one, but I could see Denver too. You know, this is their revenge game. They could try and pull off that win that they didn't get in the
Yeah,
final a couple weeks ago. So that's going to be a crazy game. And I also think the Penn State BU game could get kind of wild. But I guess I'm with you guys. Like, obviously, as a St. Cloud fan, I want to cheer for NCHC, but I don't really want to cheer for Denver because they've been so good. So
yeah.
Right.
that'd be so boring to see them win again. So like, I'd be glad because then the NCHC gets more cred, but like, I don't need Denver to get it. So I guess I'd cheer for Western one, and then like you said, Tony, BU hasn't won in a while. I know obviously they're super good, but like they haven't won in a while. Penn State has never won, so that would be its own big,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Denver and
I, I
CHC.
I think the consensus here is Western, Penn State, BU, Denver.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's well, as far as who we would like to see win, or
Um,
maybe for the storylines. Those are the three. There would be that order of storyline, in my
I
opinion.
guess if Penn State wins, that would probably be the biggest news of the
Yeah,
because they were like a 4 seed, uh, which would be wild. But yeah, I don't know.
I think I'd take the national champion being in the NCHC over Hockey East. So maybe Denver three,
Well, you know
BU
all
four
the
for me.
announcers, if this game I assume is going to be on some ESPN channel, they always love their Hockey East team.
Oh
So
yeah.
know that
oh,
they're going to be only cheering for BU
it's
because every
so
time
bad.
the team is playing like BC or BU, they only talk about like, oh, did you see Ryan Leonard? Oh, did you see James Higgins? It's like, yeah, we
Yep.
love them. We
Prop
know, we know.
property, the Washington Capitals.
Oh
I
yeah, it's like
hate
the
that.
Wild.
I
Yeah, it's like the
hate
Wild
that.
playing the Capitals on TNT. It's like the Wild are playing in this game too, but
They,
they're
they
kind of just
are,
the
in fact, in the game. Yes.
they're just the opponent. They happen to be the opponent.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the Frozen Four. It'll be this week. It's in St. Louis. I'm also excited for Western. I heard they're going to be sending a ton of the Lawson Lunatics to the game, so I'm
I
excited to
saw that. Yeah.
see Western bringing the fans because even at the XL, they didn't have a huge group of students, but they were really loud. So I hope they. I always love to see those huge student sections. I know Penn State had a lot at the regional, so I'm hoping all the schools get, tons of students involved, and it's always good when it's like loud, crazy,
Right.
loud. I'm hoping for that. We'll see though. But kind of on a different note, we have the Hobie hat trick. It's been revealed. Not really any surprises. I thought maybe Aiden Fink would sneak in, but I didn't think his name, had as much weight to
Right.
it as three. It's Ryan Leonard, Zeev Buium, and Isaac Howard. Not very surprising there. Just before we talk about who we think will win it, their points, Ryan Leonard, he's got 30 goals, so obviously that's the biggest part of his, you know, plea to win the award. 30 goals, 49 total points. Zeev Buium as a D has 48 points, 13 goals, 35 assists. And obviously, everyone knows him now after the past year. He's become a household name for college hockey fans. And then Isaac Howard makes it onto the list as well of Michigan State. He's got 26 goals, 26 assists for the Spartans. Do any of you have any picks for who you think is going to win? I don't know, but I think because it seems like there's always a lot of East Coast voters, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Ryan Leonard and 30 goals. I feel like the combination of East Coast people and 30 goals, I think he'll end up with it, but I don't know if you guys have any predictions at all on this one.
All I'm gonna say is Dryden McKay. That's all I'm gonna say. That's my response. Like, did I did not see that coming. that
Yeah,
day. I was like, put a goalie in there? I mean, I think Dryden was an awesome goalie, and I think he should have won. He was the best goalie in the country. And then the same day, 10 minutes later, he didn't win the Mike Richter Award. It was, if that doesn't sum up how weird the balloting is for this award, I think they want the committee or the people who vote are enthralled with the legacy of the award.
yeah,
They want the legacy. So they're like, okay, let's see who's going to be the best pro, who's going to be this, how can our award,
Mhm.
Fantilli and Eichel, they're just focused in on the highest draft
Celebrini
pick,
and
Celebrini. So I you got to look at it that way. So who's going to be their pro? And
probably the guy on the
I
team with the best goal scorer of all time.
say the guy on the ice with Ovechkin, 895.
yeah.
Maybe that guy.
Although I think if you ask me, I mean, if you could vote today, if the voting took place after the regionals, you'd have to say Zeev.
Because
You'd
Denver,
have to. I
yeah,
mean, if there's any question, 48 points and he's a D, come on. It has to be him.
Well, not only that, but I would say some things that don't show up on the stat sheets are he is an incredibly clutch player. He is scoring goals. He's putting daggers in teams. He is scoring goals that just deflate opponents. And he just has a knack for the moment, it seems like. He just loves that spotlight, and he's clearly the leader of that team. And when he iced off BC, he went through the line, and he gave him the salute. If you guys saw that on the way out. So yeah, I like obviously I'm a biased Minnesota Wild fan, but it seems like Zeev leans into that type of competitiveness.
Yeah, I would think he's the most deserving, but if I were betting and I had to go to a casino and put my money down, I would put on Ryan Leonard. I agree
yeah,
with you, Sydney.
yeah. I think just I don't know who's all on the committee or how big it is, but I just have a feeling that it seems like this year, we had what was it, two Atlantic guys in the top 10 and one ECAC. I have a feeling we got a lot of East Coast people on the committee this year, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's Leonard. And kind of in the order I have it typed out on our sheet, if it's like Leonard got the most, and then Booyam, and then Howard. And I think Isaac Howard's had a great season too, but I just think the other two have so much. I don't
And,
know.
and and the thing is, like, I don't know when the vote is cast. That's the biggest question. When does the vote actually get cast? Because if it was cast
For the week.
after the conference season, or after the regular season, I think it's Isaac Howard. Big Ten Player of the Year, and he had enormous goals. They were one of the best two teams in the country. I thought he had a better year than Ryan Leonard. So I would have thought at that point when the ballot, if you cast your ballot then, I think it's Ike. But now after the regionals, it's got to be Zeev, in my
Yeah. I
opinion.
believe they do their final voting after the regionals. So yeah, I don't know. I feel
So
like
then
that.
it's just got to be Zeev. Like another thing is he'll be there. Will Ryan Leonard actually be there? Is he going to be, is he going to be at the ceremony?
Oh, yeah, because he signed already. Yeah, I guess I don't know.
And spoiler, we will be talking about Isaac Howard's contract status later on in the show. So,
Yeah, so that's the Hobie hat trick. We'll see who wins that. That's revealed on the off day of the Frozen Four, so that's on Friday, I believe, at 5. The Richter Award, again, this one, I think I know who they're gonna go with, but at the same time, I don't really know who wins the Richter
oh,
Award. We
I
got
like I like you think you know who they're going with. I like that. That's a bold take. Who are they going to go with?
Well, they've got, I know you typed out some of the bigger names, but there's guys like Trey Augustine this year. Alex Tracy's made a huge case for himself the last few weeks. Jacob Fowler, and then Maine's goalie, who I'm sorry if I butcher his name. I believe it's Albin Boya. He's Swedish, so I'm sorry
Yep.
if the not good on that. I feel like they're probably going to go again with a BC guy and Jacob Fowler because that's just what I'm feeling again. And, a lot of East Coast people, I think, do I think that's who I would vote for? I don't know, but I feel like that's probably who they're going to go with. But I don't know. Do you guys feel differently?
What were my?
Well,
I think Alex Tracy should win it. My opinion.
I do too, and it's going back. It's like, how much do you take into account the Hockey East bias, if there
Well, maybe
is,
the goalie.
if there is any, in the sense of Fowler benefits from having Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault out in front of him. I mean, in the sense of this is not a knock on Minnesota State, but Alex Tracy I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to guess he faced a higher average of shots and a higher average of grade A scoring chances yet he has some of the best numbers. Now, people might come back and say, "Oh, that's CCHA, blah blah blah," but
I love
I
that.
I, I really think, I mean, Minnesota State, I would think he deserves the award, but like you said, I wouldn't be shocked if Fowler won it.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I think Alex Tracy might be the guy if I was voting who'd get my number one, but I just feel like all the East Coast people, for them to get another CCHA guy who's not like a Dryden McKay who broke every single record or whatever,
Right.
I don't know if they'll vote for him, which sucks because like what more can you do? But I feel like they'll vote for Fowler, but maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'll be wrong. I don't know.
Well, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
Well, so that's kind of all the Frozen 4 related news that we have. We have so much other news though, on just other stuff that's happened in college hockey since you've been gone, Tony. The most recent thing that happened, I think it was yesterday or the day before we recorded this, UND has kind of said that they were looking to hire a general manager for their team, which is interesting. And since you've been gone also too, Dane Jackson was promoted to head coach, which we talked about. That was, kind of a probability we thought might happen, but now it's official. And Bryn Chiswick is hired as the general manager for the team, which is interesting. And, that's something we got to ask, is this the future of college hockey of having general managers or guys who are going to put together the teams and then give it to the head coach like a pro team? Or is this just going to be a big school thing? Or this is an interesting move, I thought.
Well, I think once they once the CHL became open and once the NCAA allowed a fourth coach, um, a lot of this was happening. It's already
Hmm.
they just don't
Yeah,
have the official titles, you
that's what I was
know.
gonna say.
It's already kind of happening. You got guys like, I mean, I know like Leon, for example, Hayward at St. Thomas. He's the general manager. I mean, he's the guy. He's up in Canada. He's traveling a lot. Ben Gordon's traveling a lot. They got a lot of. They kind of already have this kind of in place, but not official title. UND's trying to act as if they're on the forefront of all this. In my opinion, no one was shocked when Bryn got the job because he's won a national championship at UND. He's knows the game, and there's no secret that Bryn and I and Peter and I we have a very good relationship with Bryn. He worked at Breakaway Academy doing skills for years. Bryn's one of my favorite people in hockey, and the fact that he got this job was just like, this is so cool. I first met him when he was the director of scouting, not even the general manager for Waterloo. And to see that he's come this far in a short amount of time is pretty exciting to see where he's going. And he's going to do a great job at UND because he's a great hockey mind. But to answer the question about whether this is happening, I think it's already happening. Um, and I think the head coach is the general manager in college hockey. I don't think it's going to be a Bill Guerin type of situation at UND or anywhere where you're going to have this general manager. And I know the University of Minnesota is doing this, and I am sure it's happening in college athletics. They have a general manager. Mark Coyle at the U of M has hired a general manager to manage the NIL and manage all the contracts between the players. Did you guys know that? That's public information. So I think what they're doing the same thing. They'll maybe be doing the same thing in the bigger revenue generating programs across the country in football and basketball and some of the bigger money making sports like ice hockey.
Yeah, and I mean, just quick thoughts too, Tony, since you've been gone too, when we got the news of Dane Jackson being promoted to head coach. I know we talked about that being a big possibility last time we recorded, but did you or Ryan, do you guys have any thoughts on that? Or I know just when I saw that news, obviously I wasn't surprised, but I was kind of wondering, is this a big enough move that fans are going to
Um,
be okay with it?
Go ahead, Ryan. I got a lot of thoughts on this. I share them a little bit on Monday Morning Commute. I want to get Ryan's take before I jump in.
I would say them hiring Dane Jackson from, I'm obviously not as, I don't have as much history as, say, Tony or even you, Sydney, when it comes to UND. But once they hired Dane Jackson, I think it was pretty evident that they were going to go into that GM route. And I think this is maybe just them trying to maybe be more clear on them splitting up their duties in the job. And I think in the last 15, 20 years with the introduction of now, NIL and all these other outside deals, there's a lot more duties for a head coach to do, and I think it's tough for all those duties to be managed by one person. So I think as a Gopher fan and just as a college hockey fan and maybe college hockey viewer, I think this was probably the smartest decision that they could have made with the options that they had, with the people that were willing to accept the job and the people that they wanted for the job. I think this is the
Right.
smart decision to hire Dane. And Dane is, you're not an assistant coach for 19 years or however long with multiple head coaches, and you're not a player's guy, you know.
Correct.
So Dane clearly is the player's coach, and I love player coaches. Who doesn't, you don't want a bobblehead coach that tells you yes to everything, but it seems like Dane's going to take care of the guys that are in his building under his roof who have already signed their letters of intent. Dane is going to handle behind the bench, day-to-day operations within the team. And then it sounds like Bryn, from what I can see, is going to maybe take over, not exclusively, but he is going to be the guy that is outside of the team, away from the team, maybe who is looking towards the future. So it seems like Bryn is almost like the head coach for like 2027. You know what I mean? That's his job, is to be the head coach of the 2027 team and get the ball rolling on that. And then once those kids, develop, come to fruition a little bit more, then they're maybe, moved over to the Dane Jackson side. So I don't know. It's all speculation from me, but it just seems like they're back on the right track.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, so I'm gonna dig in a little bit more. I don't know if I can't remember where I talk about certain topics, but I just thought the Brad Schlossman article. He wrote an article during the whole, search process, and he wrote this article about, it's not always UND has made some great choices that weren't the most popular. Does that not just reek of like, oh, we're gonna get Dane? He was kind of placating the populace with, don't get too excited about a
Yeah, he's
big,
softening the
huge hire,
blow that was about
softening
to
the blow.
come.
And to me, that just it felt like Brad knew who the coach was going to be, and he was out there kind of being the PR department for the hockey program.
Well,
Going,
yeah,
okay,
it wasn't the Hextall headline,
yeah,
big bold letters.
there was nothing about hack, there was nothing about it. It was like, okay, sounds like we're going to make an internal hire. So that was the first thing. So that was what my gut just said. Once Brad wrote that, I'm like, okay, they're not getting hack.
Hmm.
Gonna not gonna come. He's not gonna come back. So keep going back to the 400,000 is the key number here. He's not coming back, and he's gonna hack would have cost way more than $400,000, and that's roughly what Bradbury was getting paid, right? And he had 1 year
Hmm.
left on his $400,000 contract, 400 plus. If you listen to the AD, I think his name is Chavis, Chaves, Eric Chavis, is that's the AD at UND. He spoke publicly when Dane was hired, and Brad did an interview with him, and he said something in there. There's like one or two sentences in there, something along. I'm going to paraphrase this, something along the lines of like the meeting we had didn't go as well as planned. Our end of season meeting. Like he said that publicly. Like he basically took Brad and threw him under the bus. And what could have happened in that meeting? There are only about three things could have happened to make that meeting not go well, right? What could they be? Let's have a little test
Contract
here.
dispute.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I need an extension. I need another 400, at least one more 400 tacked onto my contract.
These would be my guesses.
And
Is
he's like, no, no,
contract
right?
dispute,
Yeah,
personality dispute between the two,
no
or coaching
chance. No,
philosophy.
no chance. No chance. I don't
Those
think
are
it's
the
any
three.
of that. I don't think that was it. I think that Bradbury asked for money and he
Or how
said,
about just a longer contract too?
yeah,
How
he
about
wanted
just
a longer contract. And they were
I
like,
need
no.
some I need
And
some reassurance.
so I need this. Eric was like, you're not getting this. We are at an impasse. You have X number of hours to accept this, or we're going to go in a different direction. And he went, fine. And I think that's what happened. If you kind of read between the lines there, I think that's kind of what happened. That's my take. Um, and they for sure had reached out, not maybe not physically like handshake, but I'm sure that the AD reached out to Hack's agent and said, this is what we got. And he went, I'm not making 400 grand a year. Pretty sure that's what it came back to.
Well, isn't he getting
And
like 1.5 million right now for doing nothing?
for doing nothing, right? So he's getting 4 years of 400 for doing nothing right now, right?
Pretty
So
good.
he's like, no, I'll do other things. I'm not coming back here to go recruiting and NIL and do all the other things that come up within the coaching a college team. He just went, no,
I mean, yeah,
I'm 56 years old. I'm not gonna be, you
talk about a
know,
commitment.
I don't know if I want to go back to that again, to that environment, to that ecosystem. So if that didn't happen, and when that didn't happen, he didn't have a lot of choices. And clearly, then they released to Brad all the people that interviewed for the job, and none of them were non-UND alums, correct, Sydney?
Right.
I mean,
I so yeah, I don't
Matt
know.
Smaby, um, did they, and they Jason Herder, obviously
So
Dane.
here's
Yeah.
my
So,
question now is how many years will they give Dane?
oh,
Not even,
they'll give him 5 years, but if he doesn't make it to the Frozen Four in his first 3 years, they're gonna just be come undone. They're gonna come unglued.
that's what I'm saying is
I mean,
how
they
many
set the
years does
bar.
he
I mean, how
have?
high they set the bar? I know we talked about this on our show. That bar is set so high right now.
You got to win 70% of your games at
You got to
least.
win 70% of your games. You got to win the conference title at least every other year. And you better be in the Frozen Four. You better win a national championship or you're just a failure. And I think that's a really, really tricky spot to put yourself in, especially when you're the AD of school where you have three brand new head coaches next year. Like
Yeah,
that guy's got his work cut out for him.
right. Hacks probably. I mean, that's definitely a factor too. Is like, okay, yeah, I get this opportunity, but now I gotta perform.
Yeah. Oh,
Immediately,
yeah.
all the spotlight's on me. Immediately, I am the most popular guy in town. You know,
Yeah. So I think Jackson's going to do a great job. But who knows? I mean, we saw Bentley almost beat BC. That's how close it's a narrow margin of
yep,
victory and
it's
defeat
getting
in this
closer.
sport, you know? And, we could talk about this later, but, everyone's, oh, college sports is out of control. You watch the NCAA tournament and you see Auburn's and Tennessee's and these big SEC schools, and they think that the sky is falling. We'll talk about this a little later, I'm sure, about how the Big Ten is just going to take over college hockey. Baloney, baloney. They're not going to take over college hockey. Yeah, they're going to be able to pay their players more money. They're going to get better players, but guess what? They're all going to be 18 years old. They're all going to be Trevor Connolly's. They think I'm going pro next year, and there's always going to be a Quinnipiac or a Union or a team that's going to have 24-year-old players that can compete with them.
Yeah, I agree. As long as there's junior hockey, there will be, parity in college hockey.
Amen. Especially now with the CHL opening. There's
18-year-old draft pick. There's a 25-year-old guy who's got, years of experience and like 30 more pounds on you, ready to go up against you,
yeah,
playing for.
probably married, has a couple kids, right?
Yeah, we got dads, we got husbands in college hockey,
Yeah, like
So
dude, they're playing for they're there because they love it. They're not playing because their skate is in the next rink. A lot of these guys, I've said this a million times, you can't win with those guys. You just can't. It's harder and harder to win with those guys.
yeah,
You
and
know.
you can see it sometimes with some of these Frozen Four teams. They're in college hockey. They've got the teams where their first line might be all those first round guys, and then if you look at their third and fourth line, they got those grinder older guys who are the role players doing their job. So I think college hockey is probably just fine for right now. But we got some other coaching news to talk about though. Spencer Penrose Award goes to Pat Ferschweiler. I was not surprised for that because I've been so high on Western the whole year, and every time we, as media, talk to Pat, I'm always very, just impressed with what he says. He seems like a great coach, great guy. So I was not, surprised to see him get that this year.
Yeah, the only other one who I would have been, who I thought was worthy was the main head coach as well,
Yeah, yeah, he
Ben.
probably was in the conversation, and obviously David Carl, I feel like probably is
Yeah,
every.
every year they're gonna rename the award,
Yeah,
you know?
so Patrick Weiler gets that one. We love that, love to see it. And then we have some coaching changes. So a lot of people I know when I post the transfer portal news are all like, "What's going on at AIC?" If you have been living under a rock, AIC will not be a Division One team anymore after this year.
Correct.
So they have all these players in the portal, and now their head coach, who seems like a great guy, Eric Lang. I've never met him, but I've heard so many great things about him. He's out of a job now. So now he has landed at RPI. He is the new head coach there after they parted ways with Dave Smith. So we'll see what he can do with that program. I'm sure it'll take a little while because obviously you got to rebuild now. They had a lot of guys in the portal once their coach was let go. So he lands there, and then a couple of other moves. Brendan Riley, who was on the AIC staff as an assistant, is hired at Long Island. He's the son of Army coach Brian and related to all the other Rileys. And then a different Riley, Brett Riley, his cousin, who was the Long Island
It
coach,
was
has
not his cousin, really?
I just looked up on Elite Prospects. His cousin Brett Riley is now taking over at Ferris State, and Brett Riley is part of the Riley family as well. His dad, I believe, is Rob Riley. So they're all kind of there's a bunch of Rileys, um, and I believe then Brett is cousins with Brendan. If I
Yes. Cool.
check
Yeah,
this
for
out,
sure.
yeah, because there's so many of them. So they got a lot of great coaches in that family. And it's yeah, crazy. Yep, Brendan Riley, cousin Brett Riley. So
I
Brett is
love
now
it.
at Brendan takes over at Long Island. And hopefully those two programs will keep going here with their new coaches. Um, and then we do have some other news to talk about. We have early departures. I didn't include every single early departure that I saw, but schools who had multiple or just ones that I thought were a little surprising, I included on here. The first one, this one surprised me as a St. Cloud fan. Our main starting goalie, Isaac Posh, even though he was hurt for a chunk of the year, signed his contract with Colorado as a free agent after 2 years at St. Cloud State, and he was hurt part of the year this year. So he
Almost the
hasn't,
whole year.
yeah. So I mean, he's only had, a year and some change and
You're in change. He's a very good goalie, though. You have to admit, he's a really good
very
goalie.
good goalie. And like we said, I believe he's going to be a dad, I think, this summer. So maybe he was like,
Yes.
gotta take my chance when I get it. So he's moving on up, signs. And then Minnesota, we can talk about this too. Pretty much all the Gophers that people thought maybe would sign, they have all signed. Chesley Wood, Moore, Renzel, Snuggerud, and Kurth have all signed their pro deals and are now all departed. Any thoughts on those, Tony?
Well, the one that jumps out to me most is Oliver Moore, oddly enough. Coach Motzko always says you got to stay 3 years. That third year is where you really turn it on. And I mean, Oliver Moore was barely a point a game guy, if that, at the U in his sophomore year. I think he needed another year of seasoning, but he is playing in the National Hockey League right now, and it's a very young and developing team in Chicago. I hope it works out for him. There's not a nicer classier family, classier kid, and a kid who works super, super hard at his craft. So I think he's ready, but I think college hockey would have served him better next year, in my opinion.
So all those guys have signed. Another Minnesotan, a big congrats to him. Cooper Gay of St. Thomas signs after his junior season, signs with the Colorado organization. So congrats to him because that's obviously a big signing for the Tommies.
Yeah, he's just had a great season. I mean, he was an absolute goal scorer the last 2 years, and I think it was a good move for him to move on. So these are it's like this isn't where I absolutely say you have to stay or absolutely have to leave, but I think Cooper Gay's done everything he possibly can after 3 years at UST.
Yeah, I mean, he had a big year. He had 30 points in 35 games for St. Thomas, who was, okay this year. They weren't crazy good or anything, but sort of crazy. I remember watching him at like the St. Cloud Norsemen. So it's always crazy to see those Null guys then end up
Yeah,
Hmm.
signing deals, which is awesome, but that'll be a loss for them that they'll have to try to replace next year. Obviously, for BC, their big guys, Leonard and Perot and Jacob Fowler, they're all going to be gone. We already talked about Leonard. He's playing with Ovechkin now, so he's doing fine.
he'll do just
Um,
fine.
Did you
he's doing
guys
fine.
hear he's finishing his degree?
I read somewhere that it said he had a quiz after
Quiz.
a big game the other day, and he was like, "Oh, I'm waiting to hear back how I did."
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought I was like, hey man, good for you.
So
That's cool.
tempting to be like, oh, well, I'm in the NHL now. So, hey, classmates, I'm typing you a little discussion post and saying
I've
I
seen those too. Yeah.
signed my contract and I'm not turning in anything else for the rest of the year
They
type
do
Yep.
do
shit.
that? That's kind of funny.
Yep.
I've never
I
seen
mean,
that before.
I've heard it's happened a couple times where people will be like, "Oh, well, I was in an online class with these guys," and then I think they just sign the contracts and they're like, "Well, what's the point? If I want to finish my degree later, I will." But I think a lot of them just
I think it's for posterity. Like, hey, I started this, I want to finish it, kind of thing. It's like quitting a team, a youth team in the middle of the season. Nope, you're gonna see this to the end and finish it. And even if it's not like it, the degree, hey, I finished 3 years. I got a year left to finish. You can finish that in summer school or get it done. A lot of people do
Hmm.
that.
and it's yeah, just cool to see him doing that, which is pretty interesting. Northeastern, we talked about some of these guys before, but they are losing a lot. They lost four players already who have signed early. Lund, Dorrington, Williams, and Whitehead all took their deals, so they're gonna have a lot to replace for them. Providence, Tony, I know you had some thoughts on this. Loses Trevor Connolly. I'm pretty sure he was hurt like half the year, so he barely played even a freshman season.
It's just the first round draft pick syndrome. I'm a first round draft pick. That means I'm guaranteed a 10-year career in the NHL. And I'm a firm believer, and this is why I maybe not didn't express this clearly enough. I just feel like you need to dominate at every level. Dominate at high school hockey, then go play juniors. Dominate at juniors, then go play college. Dominate at college, then go play pro. You just can't fake it. I mean, I I'll be honest. Let me ask you, Ryan. You're a Gopher fan. You watched a lot of their games this year. Did you ever get the
Hmm.
feeling that Oliver Moore was dominant this year as a Gopher?
No, and again, not a knock on Oliver Moore's
No.
is just the level, and only so many guys can be dominant. There's only one puck out there.
Right. Right. That's
So,
all I'm saying. And I look at Trevor Connolly's numbers and go, and I didn't watch Providence play one game, but I just look at the numbers and go, is this really dominating, Trevor? I mean, I think he should stay in school and dominate and then go on and be ready to play college, play pro.
Yeah, especially just with, if you're out for an injury, it's like, are you then stepping into pro at the end of the season?
Pro.
You didn't even have a full season of playing. Like you weren't even playing regularly.
yeah,
It's hard to come back into then at a
if
harder level.
I yeah, it's just if I'm Oliver Moore and one of the original six teams comes knocking and says, I've got a 3-year entry level contract for you and you can take your rookie lap next week. I,
Hard
I,
to
I
turn
don't
down.
I don't blame him one bit. You know what I mean? And Chicago is not a bad place to be as a young, skilled forward right now. So, right, like I think I mean it's like choosing between having chocolate or vanilla cake. There's not he really, you know what I mean? Like either way, he's in a pretty good spot. So,
Yep.
but yeah, I wasn't too shocked to see all the others go. Maybe a little was it Chesley that left with a
Yep.
broken leg? So,
No, he didn't have a
no.
broken leg.
No,
Huglin has a broken leg
Hughlin, excuse me, Hughlin even signed his pro contract with the
with
broken
with a
leg. So,
broken leg.
so that must be good. That must be good news for his recovery or his
Yeah.
rehab. But I think the Gophers will be fine next year with the transfer portal. I kind of have a Gopher mock-up projection of their lineup next year if you guys want to hear it at
Wow.
some point. So,
Wow.
That when we talk the portal, because I'm sure they're going to have guys to fill in. I know we've heard some rumors we can talk about too,
Yep.
a little bit here. But and then the other early signing I wanted to mention, and this guy isn't a first round draft pick. And Tony, I don't know if you listened to our after regional pod where we talked about this, but UConn goalie Callum Tongue, who I thought played great in the regionals, signs a deal after 1 year of college hockey, and this is his path to pro.
It's crazy.
2022 plays in the VIJHL. Don't even know what league that is.
Vancouver Junior League. Yep.
2022-23 plays 5 BCHL games, but otherwise plays in the PIJHL.
Yep.
League that is 23-24 plays in the BCHL.
And
Okay.
his numbers in the BCHL weren't crazy.
Decent 917, good. But then joins UConn after one full BCHL season, plays at UConn, really good stats at UConn, but wasn't even the starter, I think, until kind of partially through the year. He has 15 games from UConn and now has signed and is playing with the Hartford Wolfpack of the AHL. What a
Good for
journey,
him.
leagues that I've not even heard of. That is insane.
What's his, is he an '03 birth year?
Let me look it up here.
That he's
Oh
being
four
coached by
maybe?
Grant Patolni.
Yep, oh 03.
'03.
Oh
So
three.
he's 22 years old. So
21.
he's 21.
Yep, 21.
21 years old. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that's a pretty fast track in 2 years. Think about it. 2 years ago, he was coming into the BCHL.
Yeah, he was playing in the PIJHL.
Yeah, that's a fast track to
I
pro
saw some
hockey.
people that were like, wow, that's a pretty crazy trajectory. Most people who play in those leagues probably won't even play D1, so it's crazy to
No.
see
And
that.
there's only so many goalie spots too.
Yeah,
There's only and if you think about three goalies per team, it's about 180 spots. So,
he wasn't even the starter to start the year. It was the Tyler
yep.
Muzelek, that kid. So he ended up winning the starter spot later on, but what a crazy trajectory and good for him. But I thought that was insane. It was like, oh, well, I got my deal, so peace out. And that's,
Yeah. I pretty much guarantee that he did not finish his classes at UConn this spring.
I don't know. I'll have
I'm
to.
going on a limb. No finish. Somebody in one of his classes got a text.
Hey, if you're a goalie and somebody at the higher level calls,
You
go.
take it.
Go.
Take
Crazy
it.
if you have a group project and you're like, oh, I have a group project online with someone named Ryan Leonard and they haven't been responding.
Yeah.
I Google them. Oh, they're playing in the National Hockey League tomorrow night.
Yeah,
What?
pretty cool. Pretty
They had
cool.
they had Ovechkin for me out there, you know? But that's all kind of the early departures I wanted to talk about. We do have everyone's favorite topic, or least favorite topic, the transfer portal is popping off. Ever since you went to Italy, Tony, the transfer portal has been just
Oh,
exploding, popping off. I know we kind of wanted to talk about some of the numbers from last year to this year. Last year, overall, on my spreadsheet, I had 349 players in the portal, and
okay.
about 70% found other D1 homes.
You broke up there. How many percent?
I think it was just over 70 I typed. So about
Really? So 7 out of 10 of these
eight
guys
in
are gonna
eight in
end
D1.
up.
And then I think only 5% I typed were guys that ended up not playing anywhere that I could find. So most people are staying in D1, some end up D3, and then some end up like U Sports or will play like the low level pro, basically.
Correct. They'll go play in
But
the SPHL.
yeah, like that or like a European, like play in France or something like that, where it's like a lower level
Right.
Europe. And as of today, I'll look at the portal right now. We have about 250 names in the portal right now.
Holy smokes.
Definitely
And we
slow.
we expected the number to be smaller this year because there's no COVID year kids eligible, right?
Yeah, if you have a COVID year, it's because you had to redshirt also somewhere in there. So most people do not have a COVID year left because
Right.
it would be 4 years. So unless you got hurt, you don't have a COVID year anymore.
Okay,
So
so there should be fewer players this year in the portal than there were in the previous years. One question I have for you, if you can pull up your portal, I would like
yeah,
to talk about the teams that have at least 10 players in the portal. I know Northern Michigan is one of them.
yeah.
And I'm assuming Miami of Ohio has more than 10 too. Who are the other programs with 10 plus guys in the portal?
When you open it, obviously people are pretty concerned because they see AIC like the whole team, but
Yeah,
obviously
that's
that's
a
not
anomaly.
they don't have a D1 team next year, so you kind of have to do that. Alaska always has a chunk of guys in there, but let me see. One, two, three. Neither of them have over 10 at the moment, so they both have.
Okay.
That is a funny line that always happens. Is like no matter what, you're in Alaska, man, and you kind of want to maybe get back to the
Fairbanks has
mainland.
9, so they're close. Arizona State has one, two, three, four, five, 8, so they're close. Otherwise, I'm scrolling. Long Island, they had a coaching change, so again, it won't be surprising, and they were an
Yep.
independent 9. Merrimack had a lot. Merrimack, I on both the men's and women's side. have a lot of players in the portal, which is interesting. They have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. They have 10. So there's a 10.
Yeah.
Merrimack, Miami of Ohio also has a lot. They have 11, I believe, but
Yeah. Not surprised.
leaning out to get his new guys in there. And a lot of the guys Miami is losing, aside from maybe one or two, are not top guys at all. Um,
Yes.
Michigan's got a couple. Michigan Tech's got a couple. UMD, interesting enough.
Yeah, they don't have 10, but they got some big names on there. They're both goalies left and Mangini left and Aiden Dubinsky left. Those are big names.
Yeah, there's a good chunk of guys in from Duluth. Minnesota State has got 7, so not a ton, but noticeable. Omaha has lost quite a bit. They have 9. They're close. Northern Michigan, like you said again, they had a coaching change, so it's never surprising when the teams with coaching changes have a lot
Yep.
that leads. Got 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, I think. So that might be the
Yeah.
most.
Yep.
Syax probably just cleaning out to get his new recruits in there.
Correct.
Because that always happens. A couple more schools have a chunk. Quinnipiac has a few. RPI has some. Sacred Heart has some. A lot of schools will have a couple, but nobody else really with anything crazy. Those were kind of all the big schools with a lot that I saw.
And I got one more. My favorite team in the world, Augustana, has 0 players in the portal.
Oh no, yeah.
What does that tell you?
They must got
Players
a good
coach.
Yeah, they got a good coach. Just
got
keep remembering that he knows what he's doing.
So that was the kind of the portal numbers from last year to this year. Some transfer portal, you typed it truths, rumors, and conclusions, Tony. So here to start off are some truths or things that have been confirmed. This one, I don't know if this surprised you or a lot or not, Tony, because you know a lot of these Minnesotan kids way better than I do. But Will Whitelaw is now moving on to his third school. Started at Wisconsin, then was at Michigan, and now he's apparently going to Western Michigan, which great school, but going to a third school is kind of intense.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. His numbers at any in either of his first 2 seasons haven't been impressive. I thought that he was a good player in the games I watched him for Michigan this year. I saw Michigan play 3 or 4 games this year. Um, I don't know. It's a bad look, that's for sure, jumping from one school to the next. I would bet that he ends up playing both years at Western Michigan. Because you can't go 4 in a row. That's just no one. It's just that's a terrible look. So I would guess that he finishes, or maybe he just plays one more year and then turns pro because isn't he a second round pick
I
for
think he's a Columbus pick.
Columbus? I know he's Columbus, but I don't know what round.
Yeah, 2, 3 maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I think I could see him turning pro after next year, no matter how well they do.
So Western picking up a lot of big names in the portal actually. So they've been doing really well, and I think they're going to be good next year again. But one big one, Colin Ralph, who was a second round pick this last year of St. Louis, is transferring from St. Cloud to Michigan State. I
What do
thought
you
this
think of that? I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's not great as a St. Cloud fan to lose a, high draft pick like that or a guy with a lot of potential, but I wasn't super surprised, on he never even made a commitment post when he committed to St. Cloud. It just said St. Cloud in his bio. So, and then when he got here, I never saw him really post any pictures with the guys or anything. So, I don't know if it just wasn't his thing or wasn't his
He
Right.
committed by only option, maybe.
he got plenty of ice time here, so it wasn't an ice time issue. I mean, I think he was one of the top D or just top players in general who had playing time this year. So it clearly wasn't that. So I just assume it wasn't his thing. But the thing that I thought was surprising was I heard that he was going to Michigan State like a month ago before the portal even opened. So now that that's confirmed, I'm kind of like, there's a couple guys that I've heard this, or apparently North Dakota's Jaden Perron, however you say his last name.
Aaron.
People were that apparently they knew he was going to Michigan like in February. So I don't mind guys transferring, but it bugs me when there's guys that it's like I hear where they're going like a month before the portal opens. Because it's like, well, then the whole second half of the season, were you even playing very hard for your team or were you focused on where you're going next fall, if you already have other plans? So
I
I don't
agree. It's
portal,
a
but I don't like
terrible look.
it's like some guy enters the portal and someone 5 minutes later goes, "Yeah, I'm hearing this school is where they're going." And it's like, well, they clearly had talks before that, then they've been in the portal for 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, how it works, and everybody knows on this podcast, at least how it works is they have a agent slash advisor who calls the school and they say yes or no. Yep, we'll take them. Um, and they just you could go to the next two, the UNO guys, Charlie Lurie and Tanner Ludke. We both have a story on each of them. You want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, the UNO, like we said, lost a lot of guys. So Charlie Lurie is going to Mankato, Isaiah Norland, another Minnesotan, he's going to Colgate, and Tanner Ludke's going to Minnesota. Charlie Lurie's was kind of funny. Messaged me that he was in the portal to add me to the spreadsheet, so that was pretty funny, I thought. Because
I
now I'm
love
starting
it.
players who will message me. I had a couple women's players too go, "Hey, I'm in the portal. Will you add me?" Because like I don't have my own portal login, so I can't just log in every minute and see the new
Right,
additions. I wait for info to come to me or for someone to send it to me, so I don't have it updated like to the minute type
right.
thing. So
Yeah,
sometimes I had a couple other women's players too go, "Hey, I'm in the portal. Can you add me to the
that's
list?" So
funny. That's so funny.
when I get picked,
The my story on Tanner Ludke was obviously Kayla from our staff's dad's on the staff at Lakeville South. Got word that he was committing in the portal and committing to the Gophers, and Kayla went to town and made a beautiful tweet about Tanner, and there were people for like 3 days who didn't believe that what we tweeted was true.
yeah.
Like, oh, allegedly, they were like, I think we've established ourselves as a
On my
as a
spreadsheet,
pretty
I
good
said
news source,
girl
right?
IH official. It's official. Believe it.
What's that?
I put you guys as the official source for that on my website. So I took it as official because I know you guys know what we're talking about.
If
So
it's Minnesota kids for sure, right?
Hmm.
I mean, we're gonna know. If we don't know, we're not gonna post it. Like yesterday when we posted the NTDP, the 6 kids from the NTDP, I had like 7 different sources that then summed it all up, and I'm sure those 6 will end up on that roster when USA Hockey announces that U17 team in the next couple of days.
yeah. So a bunch of UNO guys are moving on to different places. Tanner Ludke's moving to the Gophers. They also grab Michigan State's backup goalie Luca DePasquo, so he will be joining the Gophers next year.
Yeah,
Uh,
which tells you that Trey Augustine's coming back. I mean, he wouldn't transfer if he wasn't going to own the net or to get a shot at the net. That tells me right there that Augustine is on his way back to. He told the Red Wings that he's not coming, which I think is
yeah,
pretty cool.
that's big news for any Spartans fans because obviously you want him to stay as long as he will agree to stay. So Minnesota gets their backup goalie who has had really good stats when he did play. So that could end up being kind of an underrated pick or
Right.
transfer.
I think he was definitely slated to be the starter if Augustine were to
Correct.
leave. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
It's a good pickup for the Gophers, no question.
And then just a few other Minnesotans who have found new homes. Finn Loftus of Blaine is transferring from UMass back to Minnesota to St. Cloud State. They also pick up a different defender who's not a Minnesotan. And then Broughton Sabo, who we've talked about, going from Alaska Fairbanks to Ohio State, along with Minnesota Adam Isley of Mankato going to Ohio State.
Yeah, that's those are those scary ones. If you're at a CCHA team and their player one of your best players ends up in the Big Ten, that kind of raises eyebrows. Like, okay, what are they offering there? Maybe a
What did
better
I do
TV
wrong?
contract. What do they do? What are the Big Ten schools doing right? I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. But it seems to be a very popular place
Eyeballs.
right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
could be. It could be eyeballs.
I think it's also just the experience of where you're going to school. I mean, Ohio State football game compared to a Minnesota State football game,
Yeah, if
just
you want a huge school, Division 1, three.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the stuff the guys aren't going to say in the press, but oh yeah, I'll be a big guy on Ohio State's campus. That sounds pretty cool. It's like
Yeah, the reality is,
Facilities,
yeah,
everything.
the facilities are great, especially at Ohio State. The facilities will be
Yeah.
awesome. But the
Yeah.
reality is, once September 1st happens, that head coach owns your calendar from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. You, if, but we play Michigan today in football. So I didn't recruit you to come here to go to football games. I recruited you to come play hockey. So it's
Yeah,
not as
absolutely.
glorious. It's not as glorious as it might seem playing at a Big Ten institution. Other than the facilities are unbelievable and the eyeballs are unbelievable. Um, but like Ohio State doesn't have a big fan base, a hockey fan base.
Yeah, hockey
Uh,
fan base. Well, I think
It's
I
getting
think
better, but Penn
they
State has a
probably
great
have.
fan base. Michigan State, great fan base. Michigan, great fan base. There's some good barns in the Big Ten. Notre Dame's got a good fan base. There's some. It's a good league. I still think it's a bit overrated right now, but I think it's projecting in the next couple of years to be one of the best leagues, to be the best league in the country.
Yeah.
So those are all the notable like Minnesotan related transfers. The only other Minnesotan who has officially found a home, I'm not going to list all of the ones that are just in the portal, but I just saw this morning per Schlossman that Mitchell Becker of Rogers, who's playing at Lowell, is going to Niagara. So that is another
Yeah,
Minnesotan.
I did see that. I forgotten that Mitchell Becker was still playing.
Well, he'll be
You
at
know,
Niagara next year. So,
yeah,
and
good
I
for him.
Minnesotans on Niagara this year. So if there's not, then there will be next year. So
All right, we're gonna go to the rumor mill now.
rumor mill time. We got some big ones, but they're basically ones that everybody has heard of. So do you want to talk about a certain Mankato commit flipping, Tony? Because
Sure.
at this point,
Uh, yeah. Well, Tate Pritchard. It seems as though through some of your investigation and through the message boards and through the internet, looks like he's going to be going to either university, a strong lean to the University of Minnesota. If it's not there, it'll be somewhere one of the bigger schools. Look at UND or somewhere like that. So kind of sad. I kind of sad for Minnesota State's the world. Like, they invested in him 2, 3 years ago, got a commitment from him, goes and plays junior hockey. He does great in junior hockey. And as a reward, he gets to go to a bigger school. And I feel bad for Mankato in this instance. So
But at the same time, I mean, I'm sure Mankato has done that with lower level players that were committed to you know,
yeah.
lower
Oh
level
yeah.
schools. It's a dog eat dog world, the
It
recruitment
really
world
is.
and
And
NIL. How are you going to say no to, a six-figure check?
if you're getting it, and they're not
Well, yeah.
college hockey isn't where college football or college
No, no,
basketball
no,
is.
not seven. I'm not saying millions, but there's,
I think the key is that the Big Ten schools can give the players a lot more flexibility in their lifestyle. Let's put it that way.
mhm.
I will say this though, Bob Motzko on a couple different occasions in the last year has used this term patience. Have you heard him say this? Either of you guys heard him say this? Yeah, we're very patient, very patient, very
About
patient
the recruits.
about their recruiting. And
Yeah, they
basically what
don't.
he's saying is when we want Tate Pritchard, we'll just go get him. You know, Ben Gordon will get on the phone with Tate Pritchard's agent and say, "Hey, would Tate want to flip his commitment from Minnesota State and come here?" Yeah, yeah, we got
Yeah,
room. Yeah,
they benefit from being that top dog. It's like when Alabama calls for football,
yeah.
they're picking up. You know what I mean? It's just like,
It's just
the recruiting does itself,
it sucks. I mean,
especially if you're
I'm a
from
Gopher
Minnesota.
football fan, and to watch their best offensive lineman end up at Ohio State next year is like,
Yeah.
wait, no, that guy's good. You know,
And obviously, do you know where he's from?
no idea.
Ohio.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay, all right,
where
that's
I
fair.
mean, you know what I
Hey,
mean?
same
I know
deal.
there
Don't
probably
problem.
are
I have no
some out
problem with
there,
that.
but as somebody who played, Minnesota high school hockey, the kids that are committed elsewhere will probably they'll try and say that this isn't true, but the
Oh, they all
Gophers are
grew up
number
Gopher
one.
fans. Yeah,
They're
they
number
are.
one. It's
They
just
are.
how it goes. St. Cloud State is awesome. All the other Minnesota schools, UMD playing at Amsoil, that's a hell of a second place to,
Yeah.
but. Yeah, it's just they're the number one team in town. They've been there the longest. They have the best history. They always get the top players. It's almost self-sufficient at this point.
Yes.
Oh, Cloud fans are very used to, this. I know Mankato fans are like, oh, this is starting to happen more. It's like this has been happening for a
Yeah,
while.
oh yeah.
For decades.
I
Happened
mean, how many
with Leo Gruba, it
Yeah.
just
how
where he was committed, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, he's going to the Gophers now. So
yep. Like
immediately.
this whole
That's
big
the
rumor mill.
definition of patience.
This whole big rumor mill, everybody was all, I mean, nobody was saying Pritchard's name, but everybody was like, oh, I'm hearing a commit is flipping to the Gophers. And all the replies were Mason Craft, Mason Craft, Mason Craft. I'm like, you guys have recency bias. Mason Craft is not the current best
No.
MN's state recruit. He's a hell of a player, but he's not your best number one recruit right
It
now.
that
You know
that
what I
wouldn't
mean?
fit into the patience
Oh,
category
no.
because what they're going to do on Mason Craft, he grew up a Gopher fan. His dad played for the Gophers. They're going to patiently watch him play juniors the next 2 years, and then if they want him, they'll just go get him, you know? And it's a fact. It's just a fact. And that's the way
They're
they're
very
going to
good at
recruit. They're
they're
going to
good.
go
They just
after
dangle. They
they're going to go
dangle it.
after the LJ Moonies and some NTDP guys, but I think what they're going to really do is they're going to poach the Pritchards of the world, as and go through the portal and get stud draft pick kids like Wood and Ludke and those kind of guys. It's not a bad
Mhm.
recruiting strategy to be honest with you, if you can get away with it.
Well, no, and it's like you said, it's not unique to college hockey. If you listen to uh, Coach Patino at St. John's, he openly said, I mean, he doesn't really care anymore as he's getting older, but he's like, I'm not recruiting high school kids. I'm
No,
not taking. He's like, if a 5-star wanted to come play for my school, I'm not taking him because I just don't have the experience. I'm gonna go in the portal and get a guy who is maybe a 4-star, 3.5 star, but he's got 3 years of college hoops under his belt, and
right.
I think
That's important.
the Gophers are kind of starting that model where it's like, yeah, we'll let you develop at those smaller schools, and then when you're ready to come play for the big guys, we'll maybe call you.
And the
So
definition of tampering is calling the player or the player's family. You can call any family advisors you want any time of the year. It
yeah,
is what
I
it
mean,
is.
well, and like you said, if there's no phones or no technology around, how do you police it?
You can't. You
You
can't.
can't. You can't. And like just how quickly, the Pritchard just gets out there. You
Yeah,
know
it's
what I mean?
crazy. It's crazy.
That's just how it is. People talk, people get connections, and yeah, I'm kind of bummed for Minnesota State. Like I said, a lot of their fans are bummed, but at the same time, that's the playing field that they're on, you know. So
So if that
Yeah, no
happened, and
doubt.
I know we were talking earlier whether or not to talk about it, but it's basically out in the open now anyway. You can do 30 seconds of research and find that I screenshotted it just in case it, goes down. But his original post was retweeted with one of my former colleagues when I worked at the Rink Live. Jason Feldman retweeted his commitment post when he committed, and it says this post has been deleted. So
yeah, yeah.
not hard to do that.
It's actually kind of funny, actually, right?
So you can kind of do 30 seconds of research for yourself. So that's why we ended up bringing it up because it's not a secret anymore. A couple days ago, people didn't really know about it. And then all of a sudden it spread like wildfire the past 48 hours. So everyone
Yeah.
kind of, one other rumor you put on here that I know people have been talking about, everyone keeps talking about Tristan Sarsland of Clarkson. And if he was going to transfer somewhere to like the Gophers, but he's not even in the portal. So I don't really know where that rumor's
So that's why I put it in the
I don't
rumor
know where
category.
coming from, like if someone had inside information, because obviously he still could enter the portal, but he's not in there right now. So
But Tristan had 8 goals, two overtime winners, 23 points. He was fifth on the team as a defenseman at Clarkson. So the rumor is pointing him at Dinkytown at the U of M. So
yeah, I kept hearing that too.
again, that fits the patient model,
If
right?
he enters the portal, then I'll believe that. But at the moment, he is not in the portal.
Listen to
So
the portal queen, just not even just mad. You're like the mad portal
I'm
queen right
just like
now.
I hear so many rumors sometimes, and I'm like, okay, I get that you want him on campus, but first he's got to get in the portal, though.
Right,
Like
right. No,
go in.
All right,
yeah,
you guys ready for my Gopher prediction lineup? This is full of
Yeah,
rumors, but
this would be
I'm gonna throw this out there, and then maybe in like September we'll we'll go back to it. I'll write it down.
Sure.
All right, we'll go top to bottom. Forwards, and then this is not necessarily like I'm just like spitballing on lines, more so just who will be on the roster. I've got Zemer, Clark, and Lamb first line. Um, I've got Ludke, Paulson, and Pritchard line two.
Wow.
Line three, I've got Hendrickson, Middlestat, and Mooney.
I think Mooney's
And
a top
then
six, but
like I said, these are just like guys that are forwards. And then my wild cards for forward are Hayden Reed, Jackson Nevers, Teddy Townsend, or Clarkson, like you just said. Or no, Clarkson is defense. Excuse me, Townsend for forward. So those are kind of
Clark
my
Teddy's coming in next year. No proof that Jackson Nevers is coming in yet.
right. He's on the wild card side.
Where's
So then
Jimmy
on deep,
Clark?
he's first line
Oh,
center.
you first line. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was reading a text from Kayla Franz asking if I would pay for her to uh go to learn to play hockey in women's hockey, Minnesota. And I'm like,
Wow.
would you pay for that? I'm like, 1,000,000% I would pay for that. I want to see that the giraffe out on skates. It'll be great.
I gotta learn to play hockey too. I'm
I'll hey, not
Here
just
we
you.
go.
I'll pay for you too, Sydney. You go play hockey. We will video the crap out of that.
think I could be a pretty good stay at home defenseman.
And we'll play a little 2-on-2, Tony and Ryan versus Sydney and Kayla.
Oh boy, there we go.
Oh yeah, what we got to film that YHG.
The
All right.
YHH beer league
I can
game.
skateboard. I can't skate backwards, so it might be an issue, but we'll
It's
see.
okay. Just turn around. Just hard turn back.
All right. So moving to defense, I've got
Wow.
um
Maney's Minnesota. I didn't realize we had
Cal.
I didn't see, is this on the agenda, Sydney? I'm looking for it on here.
It is, yeah.
It's
Where are
not
we
on the
based?
agenda. I'm looking. I
Where are
don't
we
see it.
based?
Oh man.
I've got
D.
Cal Thomas,
Yeah.
Luke Middlestat,
Yeah.
Whipple,
Oh, yeah.
and Gruba,
Yeah.
and then Clarkson will be in there somewhere.
Why do you keep calling him Clarkson?
Starsland?
Starsland,
Sarsland?
sorry.
Sarsland. He's from Clarkson.
Sorry.
I
Starsland from
you got
Clarkson.
you have Jacob Rombach on there?
He's in the wild card, but
Do you got Maceo Phillips on there?
I do not know.
Okay. All right.
Oh, I also have Javon Moore.
Mm. He's got another year.
And then
Really?
for goalies, I have Nathan Airy coming back, and then Luca DePasquio will
Yep.
be those will be.
Yeah, you
And
got those two right.
that seems like a 50-50 on who's going to own that net. So
Okay.
I just maybe pray we don't do that whole splitting thing again.
Right. Right. Well, you got to
That
earn
didn't
that
really seem
net.
to work from the. Yes, you do. So
All right.
we'll
What
see how
else you got
those.
on the rumors section, Sydney?
No, this was another thing I wasn't originally planning on talking about, but now it seems like everybody knows about it on the various message boards I've snooped on, so might as well talk about it. I'll start this off by saying this is all allegedly
Yeah,
just in.
there's no police reports,
I
no
tried to
proof
look
of
up
this.
reports. I've already tried to look up if there was any jail bookings, couldn't find anything, but this is all allegedly. I'll start out with that. But everybody on these message boards has been saying that there was a fight on the North Dakota campus that had affected some of the hockey players, including, and I know Tony, you heard about this too, Sasha Boisvert and EJ Emery. I
Yeah.
don't know details about the fight, and there's a really crappy video going around that you can't even really tell what's happening in the video, but apparently that's from the fight. I don't really know what it was about,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Did you get any more details?
No, I really didn't get much out of it. I just know that the fight, the alleged fight happened prior to him entering the portal, officially entering the portal. And then there was a photo of EJ Emery shaking hands with the AD at when all the players came out when Dane got announced as the coach, and he looked fairly normal in the photo. He didn't have like a sling or a black eye or any dressing on of any sort. So I just kind of dismissed this stuff as foolhardy, but I had I can't tell you how many texts and DMs were sent to me about the fight in Grand Forks. So
So they're fighting with each other, allegedly.
no, no, they were like with a
I heard
frat
it was
or
at
at
a
a
party.
party or something.
Again, allegedly, because I we do not have, our own video,
Yeah.
but allegedly it was at a party or something.
Nice thing to talk about in the rumor section of our podcast and
But
just
Things that
I heard
happen on
so many
college campuses daily.
they wanted people to
yeah.
because everybody kept like not talking about it. So allegedly we heard this happen. So thought we would bring it up. And if anyone has any better concrete details they can share with us, let us
Oh
know.
yeah. Send them our way.
But
Okay, so what was the next one? There was another one on there.
just players that are staying or leaving. You already talked about it. It sounds like Trey Augustine is staying for another year.
Yes.
Do you have any
Yes.
insight into Isaac Howard? Because I know a lot of people were wondering, Tony, what's happening because he is not signed yet.
It's just the strangest thing. Like it's a foregone conclusion that he's turning pro after this hockey season, in my opinion. And now it seems like they've run into some contract negotiations, or there isn't any room in to get him in and sign that contract to, take up a year of his what do you call eligibility or his tenure there. So right now they're kind of at a stalemate in between whether he's going to play this year, but I think for sure he'll play for the Tampa Bay Lightning or their AHL affiliate next season.
They just don't want to burn one of his cheap
Maybe that's
contract
it
years.
too.
Well, because they signed I'm forgetting his name out of UMass. They signed him to his ELC.
Right.
So, you know,
I think he probably was a lot less expensive than what Isaac would go for as a first rounder.
mhm. Last
So
pick of the round.
I would be shocked to see Isaac Howard in green and white next year. And
No
obviously if
chance.
you follow the cookie crumbs, Augustine is coming back because I still can't pronounce his name. The Pasqua or whatever is coming to the
They'll the
Gophers.
Lightning will trade Howard before they let him go play college again. That's my take.
Wow, I like that. That's a good take.
They would want that value now. They are in win mode
Now,
now. Like the Lightning just offloaded everything. So maybe that's another reason that they are maybe hesitant to sign him right now. Maybe it just doesn't fit in the equation of where they're at. I don't know. Like you said, it's probably obviously a money issue. It's probably the amount that they're going to pay him for the impact that he's going to have right away.
right,
So
right.
it just yeah.
All right.
Some
What's the last part of the show, Sydney?
sort of talked about the Big Ten schools and money and poaching some recruits and all that stuff. So we kind of already talked about that. And you also wrote the bullet point, how many end up out of hockey? Was that related to the transfer portal type thing?
Yeah. So yeah, that was early when I was writing this agenda. I put some conclusions, and I think we've touched on both of those already, which was are the Big Ten schools taking over? I think we've kind of answered that question. And then how many of these kids in the portal end up out of hockey? And you said not many at all.
Well, it was not many last year, but I think it'll be a lot different this year. I've already had some people message me too and ask me about that because of the CHL commits now.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get some, if you need like just a fourth line grinder guy, would you rather take, some random guy from the portal that you're just gonna have on your team for a year, or are you gonna recruit
Hmm.
a guy from the CHL and take a chance on some dude from the dub or something like that?
Yeah.
So it would be more interesting this year to see if there's more guys who don't end up in D1 or more guys who end up in D3 because now there's a whole nother good league to pick from. So I'm
Yep.
to see if that affects anything. And one more thing too is that there's guys who did play major junior who are in U Sports, and apparently some of those guys are going to come to
They're
Division
good
One.
players.
We've already won
Hmm.
a school in Canada is going to Arizona State, I think it was. So I'll have to crunch some numbers when the portal is done and kind of see what impact that had on everything because it's definitely going to have some impact. I don't know how much, but it will play a role in the portal this year.
Here's a question for you guys. And I think we can next year we'll be able to do next September 1st, we'll be able to get our first read on how many kids came to NCAA hockey from major junior.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And the big question is, who had the greatest percentage? Which league had the greatest percentage of players coming in? Was it the
Yeah.
WHL, the Q, or the O? I feel like, and again, this is I don't have any data on this. I feel like the OHL has the fewest guys coming in to NCAA hockey. And I feel like
Feels like the
the
dub.
WHL has the greatest numbers of guys.
Oh yeah.
What does that mean for college hockey?
I think it's exciting.
Oh, I totally is.
I mean, like it's unfortunate to see these guys who are getting the short end of the situation on the back half of their college careers in the sense of where
Yes.
they were above that bar of being a D1 college hockey player and the bar is getting raised while they're in it. And it's like, it's like guys that play varsity junior year and then don't make it senior year because the kids coming up are just so dang
Sophomores come
good.
in, yeah.
So, yeah, I think as a fan, as a viewer, it's beneficial, super exciting, but I think it is stressful as a college hockey player, especially as a maybe not the premier, not a drafted college hockey player. You're suddenly your spot is your seat's hot all of a
Yeah.
sudden.
Really
So,
hot. Really
you
hot.
know,
No
Yeah, so
doubt about it.
what that affects with everything next year, I know every year they put out that list. I think one of the college hockey accounts does of where all the players played the year before, like how many guys come from the NOL, how many come from USHL.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting
mhm.
if they just post that breakdown. If it's like, well, here's the dub, here's the O, here's the Q, and all of
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. It should be interesting to see 'cause I feel like I don't know, you two, do you agree with me that you don't feel like there's been a lot of OHL kids ending up in college hockey next year?
It, is it just it just feels like the OHL kids are like kids. You know what I
Yes.
mean? As where, you look at their elite prospects photo and they've got peach fuzz on their face, but they've got 125 points in 65
Right.
games. You know what I mean? You're like, what the? But he's
Yeah.
145 pounds. He's 145 pounds.
It's a great league
It's
though.
different.
It's a
Oh
great
no,
league.
I'm not knocking the league at all, but it just seems like the dub and just historically who has come from the dub, if you want to look at the alumni list from the two, it seems like the dub has kind of been that top junior league in Canada, at least
I
from
want to
An American perspective.
One thing I want to dive into also next year when the rosters are released are teams like North Dakota or like Minnesota State, who their fans have shown the rosters now with all the X's of guys that won't be back next year. Are they going
Yeah.
to with recruits? Are they going to fill them with transfers? Or are they now going to go out and go, okay, well, now we have six, players that went into the portal that we weren't really planning to have all leave. We're just going to go grab six guys from major junior that are going to age
Yeah.
out, bring them in.
Mhm.
Or are they going to choose to do portal, just straight up regular recruits, or bring in guys from major junior? I think that'll be interesting. Like North Dakota's going to have a lot of decisions to make now because they lost a lot. So it's going to be like, well,
Yeah, their
a lot,
GM's gonna be busy, right?
a lot of
Oh
their
yeah.
aren't quite ready yet because they're just getting into juniors. They have really good players like, a Cooper Simpson, but he's just graduating high school. Like he's not going to be just going immediately to North
No.
Dakota. They got plenty.
No.
Well, no.
They have to either find recruits or transfers or major junior guys or something because they got a lot of young guys who aren't ready to just jump into
Yeah.
college.
Well, yeah, and nothing's guaranteed too. It's like I think another layer of adding this GM is having somebody that can meet with the head coach who doesn't have time to say, obviously, be in a different city watching major juniors or juniors every other week. I think that is going to help where maybe they can kind of plan out their target years where they're really going to be competitive in the sense of, hey, I've got nine, 2027 recruits coming for this year. It doesn't make sense to pull them up early and maybe waste a year of eligibility. Let's go find a major junior guy with 1 year. Try not to lose our jobs this year, maybe win 65% of their games, and then really bring in all those guys. So it feels like as a viewership, they're almost taking that book out of, pro hockey where it's pretty evident the years that teams are looking to just develop their players, get playing time versus really making a run at the Frozen Four in the national championship.
Yeah, you can't do that in North Dakota.
No, you can't, but they're going to have to. They're
I
going
think
to
so
have
too.
to. The
I
fans are
think
not
so
going to
too.
like it, but what choice do you have?
All right, Sydney, what's next for us? Well, we'll have a show next week to talk
Well,
about the
probably have
Frozen Four,
to
right?
go point to recap everything that happened. I don't know exactly when we'll record or whatever. just because then we won't have another week of games after that. So I'm sure we'll have a show at some point to talk
Yep.
about everything that happens, and then after that we'll kind of see if there's enough news to record another one, or if we wait a little while and then do one sort of post portal, or what's next. Kind of depends on how much news we get. I'm sure.
Hmm.
Well, there's
Um,
going to be plenty of it. That's for sure. There's plenty
There,
of Portal, and there's going to be plenty of news out of the Frozen Four and
I
Hobie Baker and all that other stuff's coming up here in the next 10 days.
I just got a little local piece of news for the 2026 IIHF Junior Championship pre-tournament games will be held in Minnesota. Does anybody have any guesses where they will be
oh, I
held in
already thought
December?
I'm gonna
Oh,
stay.
Tony, any guesses?
It's isn't fair. I don't have it. I think they're going to be held at like Amsoil. Is that one of them?
Sanford Center,
Oh, in
Bemidji.
Bemidji. Okay, I
Have
like
fun with that
that.
drive.
And then is there one at Amsoil or no?
This is the only one.
Really?
Hmm. So that's for the pre-tournament that will be in December, and then Mariucci and the XL will be hosting the actual tournament. So
So
that
wait,
doesn't really.
I don't make so what's going on in Bemidji? So what's
They
the
do a they do like a pre-tournament junior championship. So
Usually
they
it'll
just
be like
host.
US plays a warm up scrimmage against Slovakia, or
Oh,
then like a warm up game kind of
Like
got it.
get their games under the belt playing with each other type thing.
out some
Got it.
lines.
Got it.
One also bit of local news I just got to my phone. Carson Musser entered the portal.
Really?
Oh,
Otherwise, he's playing against
Really?
Jericho, so maybe
He played a lot of minutes though, did he?
I think he played some, but I mean, he's Mberico is their kind of guy, so maybe he wants to be a starter somewhere else.
Well, he will be. He's still a really good goaltender.
There's
hmm.
some news to wrap up the show. So he's
Th-
in the portal.
Fairmont's finest.
Well, St. Cloud needs a goalie now, so
There you
Yeah.
go.
hey,
Yep.
There you go.
all right. Well, anybody else anything here for
No, fantastic show. This is a long one. I don't even want to
Yeah, I
shudder to
know.
know how many minutes this thing was. But there was, like I said, in our text string, oh, this is gonna be a juicy show. There's just way too much content. And if you're a college hockey fan, hopefully, and you live in Minnesota or have a Minnesota interest, you're gonna enjoy what we're doing. So, thanks to Ryan, thanks to Sydney, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to everyone next week.